going to talk a little bit about squeaking. We all hate it when we squeak, but it's something that just happens and we need to know why it happens. So on the saxophone, generally we squeak because of two main reasons, okay? Usually our embouchure might not be quite right. Maybe our embouchure is just a little bit too tight. There's too much tension in our embouchure. And with the extra pressure against the reed, it allows the reed not to vibrate. Okay, it can't vibrate properly if it's too tight. So you have to, again, remember not to be tight where you're pushing too hard into the reed. If you get your embouchure in the right place, you shouldn't have that problem. The other thing is sometimes the amount of mouthpiece we take in our mouth is part of the problem, okay? So if you have too much mouthpiece in your mouth, it's definitely going to squeak, okay? So like, let's say I'm going to play a D like I normally do. Okay, and I have the right amount of mouthpiece in that. I have it all figured out where it's going to be, where it fits good for me. If I slide that in, take too much, see what happens? I have this squeak sound that happens. Okay, that's just because I have too much and I can't control the sound too. So just going from here, too much, just sliding it back just a little bit. It fixed it right away just with that. Sometimes if we have our tongue position too high when we're playing, we've talked a lot about tongue position and where you should have it, thinking the ha and the he. If it's too high, sometimes that can also cause it to happen. So you have to be careful about that. So you just kind of have to kind of go with the flow of where the notes are, and then change your tongue position accordingly to that. Okay. Again, remember to think about singing, and that always helps too. Okay. So the embouchure is one of the issues that we sometimes have. Okay, sometimes the reed is the problem. Okay, I don't want to blame the reed first off, because a lot of times it's not the reed, but sometimes it is the reed. Okay, what can happen is if your teeth are touching the reed, it'll definitely squeak. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're putting just a little bit of that bottom lip over the reed, not the whole lip, obviously. But you're going to put enough, like I think I've told you before about how you put, like, it's like you're putting on chapstick. Okay, yeah. Just a little bit over the ridge there, and that's all you need. You know, you don't need to put the whole thing in. So when you got that little ridge, and make sure that's covered, but if your teeth are touching that at all, it is going to really squeak. Okay, we don't want that. Sometimes the reed is not wet enough. If you grab your reed out of your box and you don't soak it in a cup of water, or you don't have it in your mouth and get it properly wet, and you put it on here, it's going to squeak, okay? Because it's just not, there's not enough water in these little fibers, you know, that you have, that the reed's made up with. It's just not going to work. So you have to make sure it's wet enough, okay? Sometimes it's broken. If you have a broken reed, if it's split down the middle, or if it's chipped, or if the top is really ragged looking, get a new reed, okay? You just can't play on a reed that's like that, okay? Sometimes the reed might be too hard, okay? That's why when you get a box of reeds, don't just play the first reed out of the box. Don't take one and just play that until it dies, because that one reed may not be very good. It may be too hard for you, okay? But reeds are very inconsistent, okay? You can have a box of 10, and then sometimes maybe half of them work, sometimes maybe all of them work, but it just depends on, you know, what type of wood was used or how the wood was cut. And so if you take one reed and it doesn't play very well, it's really hard, but you're just playing it because you think you have to use it, put it back in the box, and then try the other ones. Maybe you can find another one that works better. Generally, when I do work on reeds, I usually take the entire box, put it in a cup of water, and I try each one, and then I line them up to the best playing one to the worst playing one, and then I number them 1 through 10. And then I know which ones are good, and then I'll make maybe the top 5 reeds, and I'll rotate those. So I don't always play on my number 1 reed. Some days I'll play my number 2 reed, or maybe I'll play my number 3. Then I know if the weather changes and my number 3 reed, you know, if it's too humid or whatever, if my number 3 reed doesn't work, then I know I can try my number 4 reed, and, you know, with any of those, okay? So we'll talk about how to work on reeds at another time, but that's a good way at least to know what's in the box of reeds. Okay. The last thing that you want to think about is just the instrument itself. If your instrument is not working and you're having a lot of trouble getting notes out and it's squeaking a lot and you really feel like it's not the reed and it's not your embouchure, it could possibly be that there's something wrong with your instrument. Okay. That's why it's a good idea to make sure that you always get your instrument checked at least once a year. Okay. Take it to a repairman that knows what they're doing, and make sure that you get them to look at the entire instrument, make sure it's okay. It's usually the least likely reason that you're squeaking is because there's something wrong with the instrument. It's usually going to be embouchure tension and amount of mouthpiece in your mouth and the reed not working properly too. So those are some things to think about, and so just keep that in mind as you're playing, and try to think, okay, well, if that I squeaked just now, what did I do? Oh, my embouchure tightened up. So you just have to make sure you don't do that. Okay, well, I will see you the next time. Good luck.